Abel here, back with another interview after a long time, and I'm gonna get into that in just a second. We have just some ads to get out of the way. About 15-20 minutes will be just enough for me to get through all the ads. Just kidding, I'm not gonna do that. But no, the only announcement I'd like to make is that now you can actually find all our courses at sustainableselfdevelopment.com under the tab Courses. I've got some inquiries that it was hard to find our actual courses, like the SSD Training and Nutrition course, which was put together by Börge Fagerli, and my new regulatory eating course, which, by the way, I'm still selling for only $20 because I'm still adding some transcripts and text files to the course. So until that's done, it's gonna remain at only $20. But all the video lectures, I believe 17, are already up there. And as of some recent feedback from some of the dear customers, they said that it's a really awesome resource and it's been super helpful for them to learn how they can achieve their physique goals without tracking macros. So yeah, you can find all of that under sustainableselfdevelopment.com at the courses tab, and that's all the announcements I'd like to make. And today I'm talking with Ivan, who is a friend of mine. He is a really knowledgeable person when it comes to fitness and just an all-around cool guy. But what makes him especially unique when it comes to fitness is that he recently got down to some ridiculous levels of leanness. I've honestly never seen a person, at least someone that I personally knew, being so extremely lean. I mean, his skin is paper thin. He is most certainly under 5% body fat, and he is actually holding on to this. He didn't get down there for a competition or anything like that. He didn't do a photo shoot. You can't even really find pictures of him online flexing or posing to the camera. He just did this for his own personal entertainment, and he's holding on to this condition, which is just insane. So we are going to get into how that feels being that lean, what he actually did to get down there, and all the mental and psychological and just overall lifestyle management aspects of this, because as you can imagine, it takes some tweaking of your lifestyle to actually get down there and be able to keep that level of conditioning, not just for 1 or 2 weeks, but actually stay there. It's not a walk in the park, as you can imagine. So it will be a really interesting and informative, and I also think entertaining and sometimes funny interview. I really hope you will enjoy it, and with that, let's get into it. All right, everybody, thank you for tuning in. Today we have another interview after a long time, and I'm talking to Ivan. Now I know that's how I pronounce your name.
Yes, Ivan or Ivan, up to you, depending on where you're from.
Okay, because before I said Ivan, but then I heard you in a recent interview, and then they said Ivan, so I was like, shit.
Yeah, they're English though, you know, we're Europeans, so, you know, tomato,
okay.
Tomato.
Okay, so how do you say it?
Ivan.
Ivan. Okay, then you'll be
yeah.
Ivan.
Thank you.
Well, you deserve to be called on your own name, right? So. Yeah, so Ivan, you're a walking, what body part is it? What are you, a walking?
A walking penis.
That's the one. Your words, not mine. Yeah, so, yeah, I mean, honestly, on the internet, and I have a lot of online friends now in the fitness community, and I saw a lot of people with crazy low body fat percentages. Some people that are more like 12% and they claim to be 6%, and even exceptional cases where someone might be at an actual 6% body fat, but I actually don't think that I've seen someone as lean as you are. Like, maybe
thanks,
ever.
Man.
So, yeah, you sent me some pictures and it's just insane. So,
yeah, it was a 5.9% on a DEXA scan. So, from what I gathered, I think anything under 5% or 4.5%, you're clinically dead on that thing. So, good times.
Yeah. So you were 5%, 5 point something percent on that, which means that you were probably more like 3 or 4 or something.
Yeah. So I was 5.9 on DEXA, and on that same day, I actually got a couple measurements done. So I had because at the gym that I work at, I have an InBody machine, the BIA ones. So that, again, they're not super accurate, but I just wanted to use like a comparison. So if on the InBody, I was 3% on the dot. And then that same day I went and got my DEXA done, and on the DEXA I was 5.9. So pretty much a double difference, which was to be expected, right? The InBody always seems to underestimate quite a bit. So I think, people claiming to be 3 or, claiming to be 5, 6% on InBody, you can maybe be closer to 10 to 12, right? So I don't, I think it's a pretty good, like, for some people it does seem to be like double. Whatever you're on the InBody, your DEXA scan will read double. I've had some females who will jump on and it's pretty much exactly the same. But again, I was just using that as a reference point. So when I did measure, a couple of weeks after, a month after, 3 months after, if my body fat was still staying at 3% on the in-body, I could make a general assumption that my body fat would still be the same on DEXA. So it was the best sort of tool I had because, having a DEXA done very regularly, number one, it's really expensive. And number two, you don't want to, there are some risks in regards to x-rays. I don't think it's too much to deal with, but having each DEXA scan is close to $100, right? So I'd rather just have something that's a little bit similar, and just easier to track progress, right? So
yeah, and I mean, just looking at your pictures, I would definitely say that you're closer to the 3% mark than to the 6% mark. So yeah, it's just insane. So yeah, the last time we talked on an online call, even then you were experimenting with kind of some getting crazy shredded type protocols. So like for how long have you been kind of chasing this goal of getting crazy shredded?
To be fair, I've always wanted that goal, right? I've always wanted to be exceptionally lean, and I don't know, it does seem to stem from a very intrinsic place. I can't define the reason, like primarily, because ask most of my friends, even down here in Perth, I'm usually always covered up. Like I'm not doing it to sort of parade my dick skin leanness all the time. Like I literally do it for myself. Most people think because I'm always in clothes that I'm just malnourished, so I have that little thing to deal with, but that's cool. But yeah, no, it's always been a big goal. Like I think when I first saw the limits of how far you can push the body with Helmut Strebel. I'm not too sure if you know who that is. But I would say he is the most shredded man I've ever seen in my entire life. And I was like, whoa, that guy is absolutely peeled. And I think it was just his interview on Simply Shredded. And obviously those things are never the best place to get your information from, but I wasn't really looking at his workouts or nutrition. I was already I was sort of savvy enough to know that if I did the same thing, I wouldn't look like that. But it was more his philosophy around life and training. And obviously this was a guy who lived and breathed fitness and just seemed to love it. You know what I mean? Like if you read I think you can literally go into his description now on that. I think they still have that interview up. And the way he talks about like how his body is like a reflection of who he is and who he wants to be and who he wants to present this to the world as like a work of art. And just the way he was wording it, I was like, man, I love that. You know what I mean? This is a guy who stays very close to stage condition as well all year round, right? I don't think he does it for others. I think he just does it for himself. And that the feeling that goes with it, that feeling of accomplishment, you know what I mean? Because it is a hard thing for a lot of people to do. And I'm sure we'll get into the ins and outs of, what it feels like and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, it's always been like this intrinsic goal for whatever reason. You know what I mean? I do work in the fitness industry. I do obviously want to be a decent role model. I know that most people who look at a person who is dick skin lean aren't really going to find that motivating or whatever it is. But again, I'm a man of integrity, and I do like to practice what I preach, if that makes sense. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's always been like a really, really big goal of mine, and I never ever really got to that stage until recently. So yeah.
Yeah, and even before that, I remember that. You sent me some pics in 2006, like late 2016, early 2017, and even then you were down at like below 6% at one point, right?
I was so that was when I was working with Menno, and I think I did get down to 8.5 on DEXA, so like 8.8 on DEXA. So I was lean, obviously lean, but nothing compared to what I am currently. So but again, at that point I was like, wow, I'm super shredded. But then your benchmark just changes the leaner you get, and I'm sure you've experienced that as well. Like I'm sure people listening to this have also experienced it. Like your point of reference, or I guess your benchmark just changes the leaner you get, right? Oh, yeah. And then anything above a certain point now feels fat. So it definitely comes with its negatives as well, which I'm sure we'll touch on too. But at that point I was like, yeah, wow, I'm really, really lean. But again, at that time I was trying to do it by I was training every day still around that time, right? So that was when we were very into the high frequency stuff, and I can talk about that a little bit later on as well. But I was very reluctant to be like, no cardio, just all strength training, calories super high, all that sort of stuff, trying to convince myself that I was a special snowflake and that I could achieve like real lean condition without doing any of that stuff, because cardio is going to dig into my muscle and I'm not a fucking cardio bunny. And it was more just stubbornness really at that point. So
Right.
yeah.
Right. So, yeah, a lot of cool stuff to talk about here. But first, so when you started out on this, when you got to where you are now, how lean were you before just that? Like, how much fat did you have to lose?
Well, I think the guys mentioned on the podcast, like when I sent my initial pics in, they were like, well, this guy's already in like, decent nick. Like, but compared to where I wanted to go, so when I first inquired, the company is called R&T, by the way. I highly recommend them to most people. I think they're just really good at what they do, right? And yeah, so I was 85 kilos, or I think 86. Yeah, 86 kilos. I think on the in body I was maybe closer to seven. So maybe I would say 10% body fat. Looking at photos now. Maybe even a little bit higher, maybe 10 or 12, because I did just come back from Croatia around that time as well. So I had a bit of a extra holiday fun on me. But yeah, so I started off at 86, and then when I was like, look, I want to get like comp lean shredded, not doing it for a competition. I just want to put myself in that state, and I just want to know what it feels like, and I want to experience it. And I think it was more of just a personal challenge for myself as well. So I needed something to really focus on. And then from the get-go, like the guy that I was consulting with was like, yeah, we're going to probably have to get you down to maybe 76, 77 to be like stage lean, right? And I was like, fuck, that's almost 10 kilos. I was thinking, if I get down to 80, 81, I'll be shredded to the bone, right? But I think this is a very common thing, and they even spoke about this as well, is that people are a lot fatter than what they think they are, and they end up quite a bit lighter than what they expect, especially if you're a natural. So yeah, for people who are chasing that really lean, dry sort of look, you're gonna have to get comfortable seeing a pretty low weight on the scale, sometimes lower than what you were in high school. So that can be quite daunting for a lot of people, right?
Yeah, but I would add though that, I mean, in your case, you got, I would say, beyond stage lean. I mean, people don't step on stage like you. Like you probably could have stepped on stage at 80, 81 kilos, I would say.
Yeah, I could probably have done like fitness or physique or something. But yeah, I wanted that grainy, really like John Meadows sort of lean.
Yeah, right. So okay, so let's get into a little bit into what you did. So you mentioned that before that you were kind of the typical what's trendy these days, which is strength training, no cardio, try to keep calories as high as possible. So that's what you were doing before, and like I guess it might be important to point out to people just before we get into this that your calories, like we talked earlier, before you were getting really lean, even before that, your calories relative to your body size were always pretty freaking high. Like you're not a small guy by any means, but still, like you're eating calories that are bulking calories for people similar to you in size.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So I think I'm genetically quite lucky on that front for sure. I'm just making that as a bit of a disclaimer as well. I think I finished my calories at my leanest, at my most driest, was like 2300, which again, for someone I got down to 76 kilos and to, keep consuming 2300, that was reasonable, right? And yeah, as you said, I know some people that have to bulk on that, which is pretty nuts. So yeah, I'm definitely lucky on that front. But in saying that, my expenditure was through the roof. I like being active. I hate sitting around all the time. So I'm more than happy to increase activity to offset or to be able to eat more food. I'm way more happy to do that. I know other people will be like, you know what, I can't be fucked. I'd rather sit all day, just slash my calories. And that's all well and good. And I think for people who are more invested in, say, I think another good point I maybe have to clarify, Abel, is that I don't do traditional barbell training anymore, right? Like I don't do much bodybuilding work at all, really. My training is very gymnastics based now. Very skill based. Obviously there are still a lot of strength components that I still utilize. Like most of my sessions would always incorporate some sort of skill work, but then it'll still finish off with I still include myo rep sets. at the end of like a session, just for like, but it's more for carry over to skills, so you still want to have some muscle bulk on you to help with gymnastic skills like iron cross, which is just ridiculously crazy, you know what I mean? So there is still muscle that you need to have on you that's just going to help you perform. But in my world, obviously having a really, really good power to weight ratio is just going to help out immensely, right? So that's probably another thing I need to clarify as well. Like, when I was training just obviously to keep whatever muscle I did have, but my training was still very, very skill and gymnastics based orientated as well. So, so in saying that, like me doing like a shit ton of cardio, the only thing that really suffered were my legs, you know what I mean? And I've always had relatively larger legs, even growing up, you know what I mean? I was a soccer player as well. Like my leg, I could literally look at a squat rack and my legs would grow, right? So I always knew my legs would respond to strength training really, really easily. And I was more than happy to shrink them down a little bit. And we'll probably touch on this a little bit later, but, my legs never looked better with quite a bit of cardio and a lot of cycling. I actually took up cycling within the whole prep sort of thing. I literally got addicted because that was my cardio modality. It started off with a couple times a week, and then by the end of the entire sort of prep, so to speak, I was pretty much doing cardio every day. That's not what my coach instructed. He was like, look, let's just do 6 days a week. But I said to him, look, man, I just really enjoy it. And it actually became part of my daily routine. I'm a man of when something is in my routine, I just find it a lot easier just to stick to that. Right. Literally since my prep until and I ended my cut in, I think it was November 23rd. And I've still kept up my daily cycling every single day. Simply because I just really, really love it, and I love the mental aspect I get from it and all the other benefits that come with it. So it's literally an hour of cycling pretty much every day, and every day I'll include some sort of sprints, right, on that bike. So that was literally my only leg training for the entire time, which sort of it worked really well because I could still get some metabolic stress. And like, we do know that, metabolic stress to an extent can still elicit some sort of hypertrophy response, right? So that was actually keeping my leg muscle around pretty easily. So I was pretty lucky on that front as well. Like, I was keeping my quads. I was obviously expending a lot of energy, cycling. It's very, very taxing. You burn through so much glycogen. You burn through so much energy cycling. I don't think people realize that, especially compared to strength training. Like with barbell training, I'm pretty sure you would know this as well, Abel. Like in Menno's course, I think he showed the graphs of the expenditure rates of strength training compared to, say, like a cyclist, right? Like it was something crazy. I think what was it? I think he compared like a full leg workout to 2 30-second all-out sprints on an Airdyne bike. And I think the Airdyne bike depleted glycogen by like 40 to 45% in the quads. And a full leg day maybe depleted 30, 35. Is that right?
Yeah, it's something ridiculous. But I think that's like a full body session is like 30, 40%.
No, I think it was literally just legs though. I think it was just the leg day they looked at. So which I found fucking crazy. But then I started actually incorporating a lot more sprints, and I was like, okay, now I know why, right? So that just became part of my routine, and I really, really enjoyed it. Yes, my legs did shrink down a little bit, but I dropped a shit ton of fat from them as well, and that was the area that I used to hold a lot of body fat, and now that area is just as lean as everything else now. I'm not saying that's because of cycling. I know we can't spot reduce or whatever it is. It was obviously the combination of me being in a deficit alongside a lot of cycling. But the point I'm trying to make is that was literally my only leg training. So having smaller legs in what I do is actually an advantage. So my legs in like the gymnastics stuff, they don't need to be big, but they do need to still be strong and explosive. So it sort of worked out really, really well in my scenario. So yeah. Sorry, it's a bit of a long-winded answer, but just wanted to give as much context as I can.
Right. Just before, like, I have obviously a bunch of questions about your fat loss process, but just before that, when you switched over to this gymnastics type training, wasn't there like a bit of not sunk cost fallacy, but like wasn't it hard to let the strength training stuff go? Because I mean, it took some time for you to build up the physique that you had. I mean, it's and you built a really respectable physique with strength training. So like, how was it letting that whole thing go?
Yeah, it was tough, man. Like experiment. I love experimentation as well. So again, when I was doing the high frequency stuff, I think you and I were having a discussion. I think I went like over 500 days straight of strength training, right? And this was like not like bitchy sessions. This was, trying to PB almost every session, right? Which was, looking back now, that was absolutely crazy. But in saying that, it built so much character, it built so much resilience. And at the end of that, I think the reason it was very easy to let go was because it got to a point, man, where I was RDLing, 200 kilos for 10 reps. I was Bulgarian split squatting, 48 kilos in each arm for, 8 to 10 reps, having to like ramp myself up for every single set. It got mind numbing, man. Like it got so difficult, right? And I think I mentioned it to you the other day. Yeah, I could lift all these impressive weights in the gym, right? But then I couldn't run across the road because my knees would hurt. So I was starting to accumulate quite a bit of injuries as well, and just my shoulders, they were starting to really cook up as well. And it was just I just went overboard with it. You know what I mean? Like, as I'm probably sure a lot of people listening to this also have similar mentalities as well. But it was hard to let go. But then looking back now, in hindsight, it's obviously a beautiful thing. Like what my body can do now in regards to like mobility, in regards to strength as well. Like it's a different strength, like I'm still very strength and performance focused. It's just in a different avenue. So I think that was the key for me, was find something that's still going to engage me, that's still going to make me feel strong. And yeah, that's when I sort of moved into the calisthenics, gymnastics based world, because again, I was a beginner. I had to start from the bottom. And, funnily enough, I actually like being shit at something initially and then getting really, really good at it. So, that was the allure. But yeah, it was just, I still needed to train because I just love being active, right? But I think maybe part of me knew that, look, at the end of the day, man, you're just crunching more and more numbers. Like, are you really getting any bigger? I really wasn't. I was just literally just training because I wanted to keep my run going, which is a fucking stupid way to approach training, right? And yeah, I was just getting beat up. I wasn't really getting any bigger. But then again, I never really pushed calories high enough to get bigger, right? So I was in this limbo of, yeah, you're strong, you're staying relatively lean, but you're not really getting anywhere anymore as well. So yeah, like it was great. It was, as I said earlier, it was very character building. And to be fair, I think I learnt that year and a half to 2 years. I just learnt so much, just being in the trenches. I know I sound real bro-y saying that, but a lot of the stuff I've learned personally and that I use with clients is stuff that I've put myself through as well. So I think that's a huge thing. But yeah, it was hard to let go of. And, obviously in that initial transition period, I was still like, and I'm still going to keep training legs. And I don't want to be one of those guys who has little legs while doing Cali. And look at me now.
Right. So, okay, cool. So you started out on this prep down to shredded land. So what was your kind of base protocol? Like, what rate of fat loss were you targeting from the get-go? Like how many, like, was it daily cardio from the get-go? And like initially, what were your calories initially, and where did you have to drop them at first?
Yeah, no worries. So when I initially came in, I was maybe eating 2,800 to 3,000 calories, and I was sort of maintaining that at 85, 86. I wasn't very active though. Again, like as I said earlier, I was still very stern of no cardio, nothing, just strength training. That's it. That's all I do, or whatever it was. Only strength based work, because I don't want to induce the interference effect, as they say. So yeah, my food was like 2,800, 3,000, and I was sort of maintaining 86. So when I first went in, my coach was like, yep, we're going to slash calories down to pretty much 2,400. And my calories have never, ever been that low. I think that was another mental thing as well. Like for some reason, I just had to have my calories higher than 3,000. I could never dip below 3,000. Otherwise, you're going to lose muscle, right? So, as stupid as that sounds, right? And I consider myself a very rational person, but I think even rational people are sort of prone to stupid things like that as well. I'm sure everyone listening to this can relate to something. So anyway, yeah, my coach, he slashed calories down to 2,400. I was like, okay, cool. A very, very was pretty much high carb, low fat from the get go. And I was always a man of I preferred like the more moderate fat approach, moderate carb and moderate protein. You know what I mean? I like that sort of balanced macro split, especially after all the information that we learned. That seemed to make the most sense to me, and hormone health and all that. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to listen to what my coach is saying. This is what I paid for. I'm going to be accountable. I'm going to do everything that is asked. I think a lot of validity can be held in that, is just not blindly following, but maybe stepping out of your comfort zone to go somewhere you've never been, right? So I was like, okay, yep, cool. So calories went to 2,400. And then that's the first time I actually started using like a step count. I never really used the step count as a tool to track my NEAT. But to be fair, that has been one of the greatest inclusions of not only my sort of daily routine, but a lot of my clients now incorporate a step count in a really productive way, not in the neurotic way. So we can touch on that a little bit later too. So my step count was, okay, we're going 10,000 steps a day from memory. You know what I mean? I think a lot of coaches now have incorporated a step counter just to, obviously keep track of NEAT, because we know that as you diet down, things slow down, such as your NEAT levels. So the best way that they've sort of shown to keep that as similar as possible is with a step count. And yes, I know other things do start to come down as well, but at this point in our little fitness world, I think tracking your steps is probably the best way to maybe keep your NEAT as close to baseline or what it was initially at first, right? Because that is the thing that's going to slow down the most. So yeah, our step count has been a game changer. Not only for it doesn't really expend much energy anyway, but I think all the other benefits that come with just walking in general, getting sunlight, digestion, giving you a chance to listen to podcasts and learn some things every time you go out for a walk, right? So that is the way I started looking at getting my steps up. It wasn't like a chore. I actually really enjoyed it. It was a really, really good time for me just to, disconnect from the world, learn some cool stuff, listen to awesome podcasts like the SSD podcast.
Oh.
I don't know, a bit of a name drop there. So yeah, it was, I never found it a chore. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm a very active person anyway. I really like to be active. So I found that was just a good little tool, and I've actually started using that with a lot of my clients, and they love it as well. So it was 10,000 steps initially, 2 cardio sessions, and I would just do my gymnastics training pretty much daily. I would keep in contact with my coach almost daily as well. They were really good like that. That weekly, daily accountability was really cool. And yeah, I think every coach needs a coach. I think that can't be overstated as well. So yeah, and then the progress was just really, really fast, to be fair. In 12 weeks, I went from 86. I think my lowest weight was 75.9, and that was a very, very, very depleted man. You know what I mean? And to be fair, like my coach was firm. He was like it was pretty much no refeeds all the way through. No cheat meals, no diet breaks. It was just straight through. He was like, look, and there were points where I was like, man, I'm dropping like a kilo a week. He was like, that's fine. We're going to keep pushing it. You know what I mean? We literally did 1 calorie drop the whole time. So I initially started at 2,400, and then I think maybe by week 5 or week 6, we went down to 22, 23, and we literally just held calories there, and we just toggled up the expenditure, right? So my cardio sessions went from they went from 2 sessions a week to 3 sessions a week at 30 minutes, and then 4 sessions a week at 40 minutes, or whatever it was. There was always some sort of modification in regards to time and sort of frequency. And yeah, step count just gradually went up and up and up and up. So I think maybe every couple of weeks it went up a couple thousand. So by the end of my prep, I was doing 20,000 steps a day. I was doing an hour of cardio a day, and I was doing my gymnastics-based strength training for an hour and a half. So yeah, it was it was. To be fair, like I enjoyed all of that. Like it wasn't a burden for me, right? And yeah, the calories were quite low compared to how much energy I was expending, and obviously I was dropping weight pretty fast. But yeah, to be fair, like I never really felt the harsh ramifications of getting really, really lean. You know what I mean? Again, maybe I'm just a little bit more resilient than maybe I give myself credit for, or maybe I just have that mental fortitude just to be like, just go. This is what you wanted to do. You chose this, But I don't know, like for some of the horror stories I've heard, you know what I mean? Like I've heard of people getting to the point of contest lean that they would, wake up in the middle of the night and they'll be eating. They'll literally wake up at like 3, 4 a.m. They didn't even know they were like sleep eating. And I'm like, that is crazy. You know what I mean? And I think you mentioned it as well, Abel, that like you just have like the most ravenous appetite past a certain point as well. Like I never really, towards the end, like I must admit, like when I did actually start like refeeding, it was like a heavenly experience to be fair. But I'll get to that a little bit later on as well. But yeah, so at the end of the 12 weeks, I think I think I maybe got one refeed when I got down to like maybe 78, 79. It was just like have a cheat meal here, and then just get back on the diet. But yeah, I found that just doing that approach, I think, do you know the best analogy is for the whole cheat meals, Abel? I think Mike said it on your podcast a while back. It was, when Pete, like, he's always had the best analogies. When you're being tortured, right? What some people do, they'll give you like a glimmer of hope. Like they'll be torturing you, they'll be beating you, they'll be, making you feel like the biggest piece of shit. And then they'll come in and be like, hey mate, here, have a cigarette, or just relax for a little bit, and they'll show you like a glimmer of hope, a glimmer of light. And then they remove that cigarette and they start beating you up again to resensitize you to that shitty torture, right? So I think that was the greatest analogy when it came to like cheat meals and dieting, because that's exactly what it was. And that's what I found. I found that when I was just dieting, and not having to be like, oh, I've got a cheat meal coming up. I found that approach just worked really, really well for me. And yeah, up until that point, it was all smooth sailing. I was like, cool. My coach is like, we don't want any refeeds. We're just going to go for it. And yeah, I was, dropping half a kilo to a kilo a week pretty quickly. And I was like, mate, aren't I going to be losing muscle mass and all that sort of stuff? And I think even the muscle mass stuff can be relatively overblown. I feel that if your protein is high enough, and if you are doing some sort of resistance training to keep your muscle around, I think actual muscle loss is definitely overstated or overfeared by a lot of people. And yeah, you're going to lose a little bit of lean mass, but I think that lean mass is going to be more glycogen, it's going to be more water, because as was evidenced by when I did actually start refeeding and, got my weight back up a couple kilos, I actually looked so much better than I did when I was really, really dry and really, really skinny. Which just shows, it was a lot of that lean tissue that I lost was just a lot of glycogen and a lot of fluid. And I think I heard Eric Trexler mention it in I think it was either Jeff Nippard's podcast or on Jeff Nippard's podcast that even the strength losses that you occur or that come about during a cut are not primarily due to a loss of muscle mass, so to speak, but it's more of the neural input to that muscle that seems to be a little bit not as strong, right? So it's more of the neural adaptations that you may potentially lose, or the signal just becomes weaker. It's not that your actual tissue shrinks, which I found really interesting. I thought that was really cool. So yeah, that was another fear that I had, that I was dropping weight really quickly and that I was going to lose all my muscle mass. And yeah, and to be fair, it never happened. But having a coach to sort of keep me accountable and be like, look, you're fine, don't worry about it. It's all in your mind. Just stick with the process. And yeah, it worked really, really well. So yeah, it was literally 12. Yeah, literally 12 weeks.
Yeah, it's crazy that. I remember how much you were weighing, or I don't remember the specific numbers, but I just remember that when you showed me your pictures of your shredded condition and you told me your weight, like there was a really big discrepancy between what you actually weighed and what someone would have predicted based on how heavy you were before at still pretty lean. And because I guess at some point your body just starts wasting its mass like at an exponential rate at beyond a certain point.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. But I think, a lot of people still, I think guys especially, I don't know, they have this connection to this number, or they think they're going to be a lot heavier than what they are. Like, for someone at my height, 80 kilos, shredded, natural, that is very impressive. If you saw that like in person, you'd be like, wow, that guy is a freak. So I think, a lot of guys think that, if I got down to 80 kilos, I'm 6'1". Yeah, if I got down to 80 kilos, I'll be shredded to the bone. Or it's like, no. If you want to be, again, I thought I got more muscle mass than average. Not that, obviously not a genetic freak when it comes to muscle mass, but yeah, for me to get shredded, like proper shredded, I had to drop down, under 76 kilos. Which again was like, what the fuck? I don't remember the last time I was this light. I left high school at 82. So
right.
It was it was crazy. But especially for anyone that does want to sort of get into that condition, you just have to sort of let go of what that scale says, and just focus on what you look like. Because at the end of the day, I was razor sharp, and I loved it, to be fair. So, and still do. Just to clarify, but that was definitely. But again, it was a big mental shift, right? It was a big mental hurdle that you had to sort of overcome. But it was putting full trust into my coach and putting full trust into the method. And the more I got to know him, the more I got to trust him. And he's actually a really intelligent dude as well. And he's done it. He's done this himself. He's done this with other people. I don't think he's taken anyone else to the condition that I got in. But yeah, it was a great experience, and I'd recommend anyone that does want to get to that sort of level, don't do it on your own, because you'll just bullshit yourself and you'll chicken out when you have to actually keep pushing. Because if left to my own devices, I'd be like, oh, dropping too fast, let's bring calories back up, or diet break. No, just dig, just go. You know what I mean? Keep the stimulus there. Try to maximize everything else around your lifestyle to maximize recovery and whatnot, and you'll be sweet. But I can't overstate the value of having someone there to help you out on a process like that. So the numbers will shock a lot of people. Like how lean or how much weight they have to lose to get that look is you just don't know it until you do it.
Right. Yeah, and again, just for people, for context again, I mean, your condition, I mean, the stuff that we normally see on Instagram, like, natural bodybuilder, got into contest shape, like you make a lot of those guys look unconditioned. And some of the people that are actually unconditioned for the stage but step on the stage anyway, you make them look obese. So
thanks, man. Look, you're more than welcome to put up those pictures on YouTube if you want. You can use it awesome, so people can get a bit of an image. So, but and again, those photos were taken they were like more candid, raw photos, which I much prefer than the very sort of over-filtered Instagram pretty photos, So
I guess the biggest thing why we are here actually is because unlike most people who get down there and then whatever, they quickly get back to their off-season levels of body fat, first of all, you actually didn't step on any kind of bodybuilding stage, right? You just did it for fun.
Yeah. I just did it as I mentioned earlier. I just wanted to know what it felt like, to be honest. I wanted to experiment it. I wanted to be like, okay, what is this condition that everyone speaks about? And just, I think it's interesting to see what your body can look like. It's crazy. And I've always just wanted to do it, but no, I didn't step on any stage. No, stage of life.
Right. So how is it like holding on to this? So what did you do once your whole fat loss thing was over? And then we will get into some more specifics, like how your days look like and stuff. But first, just like, how does it feel holding on to this?
To be fair, so I literally did not feel I didn't feel the negative effects that most people do feel, just based on what everyone has anecdotally mentioned and what they've said and all that stuff. But I think a key point of what you just mentioned was the word off season. As I mentioned earlier, like I'm not a bodybuilder. And again, I'm comfortable with the amount of muscle mass I do have now. Me staying in this condition is I 100% know that I'm not going to be putting on any more muscle. I know that. I'm happy with that. I accept that because obviously for what my current training goals are, I don't need to be super muscular. I don't need to be super massive. And to be fair, like that look just doesn't appeal to me anymore. I'd rather be the guy who looks tiny in clothes, and then when the clothes come off, it's like, whoa, what the fuck is that? So I much prefer to be that guy, despite what a lot of other people say. And again, like a lot of guys still want to be packing on muscle. So yeah, I don't recommend staying in the condition that I am if your goals are to put on more muscle, because you need to be in a surplus. You need to give your body a strong signal to keep growing, right? But to be honest, I think another caveat as well is because a lot of the training I do isn't very barbell orientated. Like I don't get that same systemic neural fatigue that like heavy squats would give you or heavy deadlifts would give you, right? Obviously the training I'm doing now is like I still get systemic fatigue, don't get me wrong, but it's nothing like the fatigue of a barbell crushing you. You know what I mean? Like the recovery aspect of that. And, if I was to combine heavy barbell work with the dieting, with the cardio, with the steps, I think I would have definitely felt a lot worse, to say the least. But yeah, due to the nature of my training, like I could pretty much train daily. I could go in, I could always work on something. And I could recover pretty nicely from it as well. And I'm considering how much activity I was doing. And I must admit, towards the end, like my sleep started to go to shit. If there was one thing that was bad, it was definitely sleep. I was not sleeping like a little baby. I was getting up at crazy hours. If you listen to the other podcasts I did, like my routine was literally me waking up 12:30 a.m., 1 a.m. to get my cardio, to get some steps in, and to do my gymnastics based session before I had clients at 6 a.m. So that was hectic. Looking back now, it's amazing that I survived that. But again, at the time, I was like, no, I feel fine. I feel good. Again, I was going to bed real early. I was going to bed maybe 6:30, 7 at night, which obviously meant very little social life. Which I was okay with at the time, you know what I mean? I was like, I have this goal that I want to hit. This is what I want to be doing. I was very laser focused. I have a bit more clarity now. We can get to that later on as well. But at the time, I was literally I was trying to get all my training and all my cardio in before I even started with work, right? So yeah, those people that harp on about the 5 a.m. club, try being the 1 a.m. club. So yeah, that was a very interesting point of the prep. But when you get to that point, right? Like the body doesn't really want to sleep. That was probably the biggest thing that I felt. But in saying that, I would then catch up later on throughout the day with a couple naps here and there, and it definitely wasn't healthy long term in that regard. So I have definitely modified that these days, which is a much better approach. But yeah, at that point, looking back, that was definitely the worst aspect of it, was just that sleep and obviously the constant awakenings and being like, is it time to get up yet? Is it time to get up yet? That was probably the worst. And obviously, and the thing is, I think because I knew on a theoretical level that obviously when you're not getting enough sleep, recovery is going to be hindered, and like all that stuff. I knew that from a theoretical standpoint, and we're all told that we need 8 hours of sleep and this and that. But in saying that, I still got in the condition of my life. I was still, my cortisol wasn't making me hold any water or anything like that. Like I was dry as a bone, as you saw in those photos. So, again, I think the biggest effect that sleep would have is maybe influencing your appetite and, making you much more prone to overeating and doing stupid things, right? So I'm not saying that you should all live on 4 or 5 hours of sleep. No way. But I'm saying I was living on that amount of sleep, and it wasn't hindering my fat loss. Like fat loss was still occurring. I think Martin McDonald was talking about this a while back as well. It's like a deficit is a deficit. Now you could make the argument, well, you probably were losing, how much lean mass were you losing, this and that. And yeah, we can go down the theoretical wormhole or whatever, but at the end of the day, my results speak for themselves, and I was very happy with what I achieved. But yeah, at looking back, the sleep portion was definitely not optimal. It's a lot better now. But yeah, it was crazy. But yeah, I never got I never got crazy hunger pangs, or I was never like, towards the end, I was pretty food focused. Like I could not wait to have like a humongous refeed and whatnot. But up until that point, like I was pretty good. Like I didn't feel the need to binge, or didn't feel the need to be a psycho with food. Yeah, I just didn't seem to get the same ramifications that most people got when they got that lean. So yeah, I don't know if I was just lucky on that front, or the way I structured my day, So, but
yeah. So how does a day of yours look like now? Because like you mentioned in that podcast, it was pretty insane. So is it any different now?
I've actually kept up the same activity levels since finishing up the prep. Because as I mentioned to the guys, I was like, look, I don't want to just get there and just lose it, right? I want to get there. I just want to, and again, I want to maintain it. I want to see how it feels. I want to experiment with it. I want to, I like experimentation. I'm not seeing many people sort of get down to that condition and then stay there. But when you look at all the stories about why they don't stay there, they talk about health ramifications, but the biggest thing they talk about is it doesn't make for a productive off season. You know what I mean? So a lot of people that get that lean are bodybuilders who they want to obviously pack on more muscle. So that is, I think, the biggest argument from staying that lean comes from that angle, right? It's like, well, you can't put on muscle and stay that lean. Okay, what if I don't want to put on any more muscle? And I still haven't really heard anyone answer that question, so to speak, because all my biomarkers were still like pretty good. You know what I mean? Like, I never got ill. I never got sick. I still haven't been sick since being this lean. My immune system seems really good. My performance in the gym is like still really, really good, even to this day as well. Like, so yeah, I'm still doing my 20,000 steps a day. I'm still doing my daily cardio. I literally have a spin bike in my apartment complex now, just because I love it. So yeah, I know. And even as I'm doing that, I'll always have like have you heard of the Great Courses Plus, by the way? Anyway, it's like this website. I think it's maybe $20 a month, and you get access to like university level sort of lectures on certain topics, right? So I'll literally find a topic that I enjoy. Like I really enjoy psychology. So I had 24 lectures of why people do the things they do, and I'll literally just put that on while I'm cycling, right? And obviously the guy is lecturing to me, and I'm just hearing all these tidbits of information. And I don't know if you know this as well, but like there is something that happens neurologically when you're doing quite a bit of cardio, or you get that runner's high, as they speak, where everything is just firing really, really quickly. Your learning rates seem to improve quite a bit as well. Like cognitive abilities seem to just skyrocket, especially if you incorporate like a little bit of sprinting in there as well. And I find that at that part of my day, I feel my brain is just super on and very, very, it's like a sponge when it comes to information, right? So I sort of use my cardio sessions now again to put on a really good podcast, or put on like a really good lecture, and just learn some cool shit, which is I guess it makes the cardio a lot more bearable, and I don't dread it. I find it really enjoyable. And yeah, like I've noticed that adding that to my life has just improved my energy levels and my health immensely, just in like a general sense, right? Like I feel so much better throughout my day. I feel so much lighter on my feet. Maybe because I am quite light now. But yeah, it has literally become like a staple in my day. You know what I mean? And I find it really, really enjoyable. So yeah, I'll usually wake up now. I'll wake up now maybe close to 3 a.m., which is late for me now. And yeah, the first thing I'll usually have a nice strong cup of coffee. I'll go for like a little mini walk down, because my apartment complex has like a little mini gym. So I'll just go there. It's literally a habit now. I'll have my coffee, go for like a quick 30 minute walk. I find that really helps with digestion. I really find that helps me, get me up and going. I'll do what we do in the morning. Probably don't have to talk about that anymore. And as soon as that's done, I'll hop on my bike for an hour, and throughout that hour, I'll incorporate 1 minute sprints here and there. Just put on an awesome lecture or listen to some awesome music, and that's pretty much how I start my day, right? And then from there, I'll have a huge breakfast now, and then I'll go train clients for the first half of my day. So I only work hands on with people in the mornings in the AM, which is really, really cool. And most of my like admin and programming stuff I'll do in the afternoon. So it works really well for my schedule. So I'll train a few clients in the morning, and then from there I'll go and do my gymnastics based training as well. And obviously I have a lot more time now because I'm not trying to cram it all in before work. And I can actually spend a lot more time working on the skills that I want to get really, really good at as well. So I'll do that. I'll come home. I'll have another massive lunch as well. And then I will either have a nap and then just get the remainder of my steps in. So I'll still hit 20,000 steps a day, which is for some people that does sound like a lot, but it's just pretty much my norm these days. You know what I mean? So I'll go for a nice huge walk. Again, listen to podcasts, learn some cool shit. Come home, have a pretty early dinner. Like I keep my eating window at around 12 hours, or even less. So my first meal is maybe 5 a.m. and then my last meal of the day is say 3 p.m., 3 or 4 p.m. So I like to keep it relatively early. And I think that sort of lines up with a lot of recent circadian rhythm research that's coming out. So it just seems to work quite well. Obviously from a social aspect, it doesn't really work that well, but I've managed to catch up with the people that I want to catch up with during the times that I want to catch up with them, which has worked really well, which for me is like lunch times or mid mornings and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, that's usually that's sort of my day to day. And yeah, I used to love to party quite a bit. I really don't anymore. Like I get a lot more satisfaction now of having a nice early bedtime and waking up and doing what I do every day. I get a lot of intrinsic satisfaction out of that. And yeah, that's again my lifestyle really does permit me to be able to maintain a condition like that. And yeah, it just seems to have blended into my lifestyle quite easily, So my cut ended November 15th, 2018. As we're recording this is the 8th of March, and my body weight is still around 77 and a half. So which is what, 1.5 kilos up from my like driest condition. So I'm just walking around a bit more glycogen filled. I'm not really walking around with any more body fat. There was my coach and I, we did experiment with how high we could push calories after the diet, right? So I kept my expenditure the same and we slowly increased calories. And I was still maintaining 3% on the in-body when my calories got up to 4,000 calories. And then we were just like, you know what, let's just really push the envelope and let's get, we went up to 5,000 calories for about a couple of weeks. And that's when I really noticed the weight started to creep up. So even with all my expenditure, even with how much activity I was doing, 5,000 calories was still too much for me. You know what I mean? And then I really started to notice like a lot of water weight coming up and this and that. And I was like, you know what? Nah, I fucking hate this feeling. I want to get back down to 77. And within 2-3 weeks, I was back down to 77 from 81. So, it was, my body's very, very responsive, which is pretty cool. So, we try to push food up, and even then, like I was eating 5,000 calories and I got up to 81 kilos and I just felt like sluggish. I felt horrible. Eating that much food for me was a chore. Like I just can't do that. Like, I know you're pushing food quite high, Abel, now because you're obviously bulking. And for me personally, that would be a lot harder for me mentally, would be just to eat so much food from day to day. I found it disgusting. I found it horrible. I hated feeling like that. And I could see my conditions like disappearing slightly. And again, that really aggravated me. And I was like, you know what? I feel and I look better at that sort of 77, 78 range. It's a good combination of, leanness and fullness and performance. And that's where I wanted to get down to. And yeah, so I think, I went from 81 was my heaviest, and I got back down to 77 in maybe 3 weeks. But only because the only toggle I play with now is my calories, because my activity is pretty much constant every day, right? So it just makes it a lot easier to get to where I want to be very, very fast, because I've got all those habits ingrained now. Like I've got my cardio's already there, my steps already there, my training's already there. And I know people are going to be like, well, doesn't your body just get used to it and you end up just burning less calories for all the cardio you do? I'm like, funnily enough, not really, because what I have found personally with my cycling, the better I got at cycling, the more expenditure, the higher the expenditure on my actual thing, right? So my little, again, I know they're not 100% accurate, but it does have some sort of caloric expenditure reading on it. And I know when I initially got it, I was burning, close to maybe 450 for the hour, which I think is pretty reasonable. I think it's pretty accurate. And then, recently every time I cycle now, it's close to 550, 560 calories, and it doesn't feel nowhere near as hard, but my expenditure is still quite high, right? So yeah, I don't know. At the end of the day, like, there are so many things that go into it. But all I know is that my activity level stays pretty constant, and I can regulate my body weight really, really easily just based on calories now. So that's the only tool I have to play with, because everything else is pretty much where it needs to be for what I want to do anyway. So
what I wanted to ask you is, when I heard the first interview with you, which you did with your coaches, like one kind of thought that I had is that it's like, yeah, kind of it all makes sense. Like, you can get to contest lean or even beyond that, and you can maintain that, but it kind of sounded like it kind of has to become your life in a way.
Yeah.
So yeah, like do you wanna touch on this a little bit? Because like the way you're able to structure your life and the way you're willing to structure your life is I guess not typical for most people. And you mentioned in the beginning that most people who say that it's not practical to hold on to this conditioning, they mention the unproductivity for it to the off season, but also like the way most people live their lives. Like, obviously, if you want to go out late at night to have some drinks with your friend or whatever, for that it's obviously not practical to do this. So
that is correct. Yeah, and I completely get that, and a lot of people have sort of the thing is, in those scenarios, the people who are your true friends will still make time to sort of see you as well. So my close little circle of friends, like, they know that I'm not going to go out and get drunk, or because I don't drink. I haven't touched alcohol in a long time. I think I drank once in the last 3-4 years, and that was at one of my best friends. It was his wedding, and I was the best man, and I had to get a little bit pissy to say my speech, and that was the only time I really drank. So alcohol has never really been a big part of my life as well. Like, even in my party days, I wouldn't drink too much. I would do other things, which I also don't do anymore. That part of my life I had to sort of sacrifice, but I was happy to sacrifice it. Like, I didn't feel like I was missing out on anything, right? And I think even within that cut, I think I maybe mentioned it in that interview, like, I actually went on like a boat party, which was like a day party, and I used to love those things quite a bit, right? And I was there, and I just at one point I was just like, man, I just really don't want to be here. You know what I mean? Like, I just wasn't, I didn't enjoy that sort of environment anymore personally. I didn't find it fulfilling. I didn't find it entertaining. I couldn't have good conversations with anyone. Like, again, I'm very introverted as well. So for people who, Abel, I'm pretty sure you seem to be quite introverted too.
Oh yeah.
Like, yeah. And like, you probably value, really, really good conversations with fewer people than just, nonsensical small talk with various people, right? I find that extremely draining. And unfortunately, a big part of socializing and going out is those sort of conversations, and I just do not find those conversations add any meaning or anything to my life, So
shallow as fuck.
do I heard the best word to describe people that love small talk. They're fessel. Have you ever heard of that word before? Fessel?
No, I haven't heard it.
It's I think if you look it up, it literally means that you lack any depth. You're people that talk about people who are fessel, they lack depth. They have nothing. They just speak about how hot the weather is or how cold the weather is. They don't get into like deep conversation, right? One of my favorite words. Anywho, yes. I did. I was happy to sort of sacrifice that part of my life because at the end of the day, I don't really want to be partying till 1 or 2 a.m. Hanging around drunk people or people on drugs, and again, that's just not part of my life anymore. And I was happy to give that up, right? And yeah, like if I'm going to go out with a friend or if I'm going to catch up with a friend, it is going to be usually for like a lunch somewhere, or it's going to be somewhere, like for a coffee or whatever. And I find those meetups are still like fantastic, and even like I still get a lot out of those social interactions as well. And my job is a PT. I'm around people. I'm communicating with people most of the day anyway, so I get a lot of interaction. I get a lot of I feel I get my social sort of dose from just working with people most of the day, right? So by the end of the week, I'm actually quite exhausted, and I'm like, I just want to lay in bed and listen to another podcast on my own, right? So I'm very self-sufficient as well. Like I like to be on my own. I've been on my own for quite a while as well. So that's probably another caveat as well. Like if I had obviously if I had a girlfriend or whatever, things would probably be a little bit different. Like I don't think any girl wants to see me wake up and hop on the bike for first thing in the morning, right? So if that did come about, I'll happily be able to change my routine around or whatever it was. So yeah, I think I would have to say that to maintain this condition, it is definitely a full-time gig for myself. It probably would be for a lot of people as well. But again, as I mentioned earlier, I find a huge intrinsic value of doing it. Like I get a lot of satisfaction from my day to day. Every day I feel like I've accomplished a lot. You know what I mean? It's like, man, look how much activity you've done for today, and look how much you've done in your day. You know what I mean? So I get a lot of satisfaction out of that, and I don't know. I have found it very, very hard to verbalize and really, really tricky to describe. But yeah, it's just like little things, like me sitting. I'm actually sitting as we're recording this. I'm actually sitting in like a side split position, and just being able to feel like my bones on the floor because my glutes are still super lean. It's like little weird sensations like that. You know what I mean? Or looking down while I'm driving and just seeing like veins course through my quads. Like I get like a lot of weird satisfaction out of that. I don't know why, and I know no one even looks at legs. Everyone hates legs, you know what I mean? My legs are always covered up most of the time anyway, but I'm like, man, under these pants I can feel my veins just crawling. It's delightful. So it sounds really strange. I know it's really, really weird, but I just get a lot of I get a lot of satisfaction out of that for whatever reason, So for my lifestyle during this period of my life, it is definitely sustainable. It is definitely a big part of my life. I really do enjoy it. I enjoy every aspect of it. I enjoy the food I get to eat. I enjoy the activity that I'm grateful to have. I actually live very close to one of those centers that caters for people who've been severely injured, right? So every day I walk past people who are in wheelchairs or people who are being assisted with everything they do. And I'm like, fuck, man, you are one lucky person that you can move the body. You can move your body the way you do, right? So just things like that, I think can definitely go a long way. And I think a lot of us take for granted what we really do have until we see shit like that, right? You know what I mean? Imagine if you'd understand. Imagine if you got severely injured and you could never train anymore. You had a horrible car accident. You could never lift anymore. You know what I mean? Like that would be absolutely debilitating, right? So, yeah, seeing that stuff and
yeah,
You go.
I'm not gonna say it online what I would do in that case.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I've also thought about that from like a very, even a deeper level. I was like, Ivan, what would happen, if all this got taken away from you, because it literally is my life, right? That would be extremely daunting, and, I've sort of thought about that possibility, and I'm like, man, if this got stripped away from you, how would you react? I think obviously initially you'd be fucking distraught, but I don't know. I think us who have been in the iron game for a long time, I think we have this underlying resiliency that we would come out of it in some way and we would find a positive out of it. You know what I mean? But hopefully that never happens, right? But so that's why, yeah, I'm a big believer in just moving your body as much as you possibly can. And that has always been like a big motivator for me as well, is that because you never know when it could fucking go. And that would be horrible. That would be truly horrible. So I don't know. I have a lot of time to think about these things and a lot of alone time to think about these weird, deep thoughts. And yeah, man, it's just it is literally just part of my life now. And my physique is more just of a result of my behaviors that I like to do. Like I don't, as I mentioned earlier, I don't look at the steps as a chore. I don't look at the cardio as a chore. I don't look at training as a chore. Like all those things bring me so much intrinsic pleasure, in different aspects, right? Like the gymnastic stuff, the whole, I think you and I spoke about this the other day, was, chasing skills for your training versus just trying to pump up random numbers. It's such a different motivator, because, I can spend hours in the gym working on a skill and I'm like, what the fuck? It's been 2-3 hours. I need to go home and eat. And, just the other positive aspects you get from just moving in general. So yeah, I don't know. It's a big part of my life. I really enjoy it. And for me, it is really, really sustainable. And, yeah, I don't know. Does that answer that question or?
Yeah. And I want to make a comment that, it's funny because before that we were kind of laughing, or you were saying that like, well, what I did is not really in line with the SSD philosophy. And, it's funny because, like the way you talk about it and just looking at the facts, like you, first of all, did it for yourself. You were not even public. I mean, you have an Instagram account, I believe, but like there are no half naked pictures and whatever. No. Like nobody can find any pictures of you online and stuff. And the way you speak about it, you seem to be like an autonomous person. And like a lot of people will say the same things as you're saying, that like, yeah, it's so satisfying for me and whatever. And when you really look beyond the surface, like they are aching inside. Like they say that they don't need the, going out and whatever, having some nights out and whatever. And in reality, they are craving that. And I was sort of one of those people for a while. Like, I think I was at one of those periods or one of those points in my life when I really needed to have some of that stuff again. And I was saying that it's so satisfying for me to live the fitness lifestyle full on. And when I got a glimpse of going out and having some social interactions and whatever, partying a little bit, it was literally like having a good night of sleep after being sleep deprived for a long time. It was like, oh my God, I can't believe how much I miss this stuff. But the point is you have to be self-aware. And the way you speak about it, I really, like, it is believable, like you don't come across as someone who is like actually hurting inside and you're just fooling yourself, right?
Yeah. No, and that's the thing, like, I even questioned that possibility myself. I'm like, am I just, is this like a mask for something? And I try to go deeper and I'll put myself in those scenarios of like, cool, let's go out and let's do this. And as I was mentioning on that boat party, I was there like most of the day and like, yeah, it was all well and good, but I just didn't feel like I fit in there anymore. Like, again, like everyone was getting really, really drunk. Everyone was getting really wasted. And, it's just not who I am as a person, right? And I hate being incongruent with who I am. Like I'm not going to get drunk for the sake of getting drunk. I'm not going to do drugs for the sake of doing drugs. Like I'm very stern with what I want to do. I'm not very easily influenced by others, which I think is a good thing. And I don't really care what other people think. But that took me a long time to get to, because I think looking back, a lot of the reasons that I did go out and did party and whatnot was I just wanted to be liked by other people. Or I wanted other people to think that was what I wanted to do. When I've always been quite introverted, I've always been sort of to myself. And And I always thought I always thought it was a bit strange in that regard. I was like, fuck, am I just a weirdo who just likes being on their own, you know? And that's the thing, like I can be happy in a relationship. I can be happy in like a group of friends for a small period of time, but I can also be just as happy on my own. Like I don't feel like if I am by myself that I have to go and crave someone's attention, or I have to go and be like, oh, I need people to talk to me. Otherwise I'm just going to die, you know? I don't know. I've always been sort of like that, and just trying to put myself, because again, like I was like, man, just go out, put yourself out in that environment, you know what I mean? And again, I was fucking like comp lean on a boat party in summer in Australia, you know, that's like the perfect scenario for a male, right? And I was like, everyone's like, wow, you're shredded, thanks. that's it, you know what I mean? It wasn't, it just wasn't.
Oh, were you like half naked and everything?
Yeah, it was a boat party, right? Everyone's like, what the fuck is that? It's like a walking anatomy chart.
Right.
I think it was actually more scary for a lot of people. But you know, that sounds like everyone who's like, oh, that's what I want to get shredded for. So I want to be shredded so I can walk around on a boat party and everyone be like, oh my God. Didn't like give me any satisfaction at all. I was like, I just want to go home back to doing what I normally do because I just don't want to really be here. You know what I mean? So yeah, but again, like that's what I mean. So I don't, when I'm having an early night on a Saturday night because I know I'm going to get up in the morning and do my cycling on a Sunday morning, I'm not being like, oh, I don't get to go out tonight because I have to wake up in the morning. I'm like, fuck yeah, I cannot wait to have a beautiful night's sleep tonight while everyone's out getting ridiculously drunk. And I can wake up fresh as a daisy and continue doing what I love to do, you know? And I know that's going to sound very, very boring to a lot of people, but to me, that gives me a lot of personal satisfaction. And that's just the way I love to live my life. You know what I mean? I have tried to go out every now and then. And yeah, as you just said, you lose you just lose a good night of sleep, right? And you just wake up the next day cranky anyway. So yeah, that's pretty much my life, guys. I seem to be quite a boring person from the outside, but I love the way I live my life currently anyway. Again, I could just wake up one day and go, what the fuck am I doing? But until that day happens, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. And I've managed to sort of, sustain this condition, very, very, very close to it. I'm still getting my morning boners, which is a good sign. So that was definitely one thing that started to go towards the end of the prep as well. Like that was, pretty much non-existent. But yeah, I've noticed that, you know, maybe if my lightest was about 75 and a half, 76, I find that between 77, 78, that seems to be the perfect blend for me in regards to leanness, fullness, performance, and just, cognitive abilities. And it still allows me every now and then to have a nice big refeed day, which I'll just auto regulate that as well. And I think I had one yesterday. I think calories went up to like 5,000, had close to 900 grams of carbohydrates. And I just needed that. And I personally just felt, even just today, like just feel worlds better. You know what I mean? And then again, I'll just go back to my normal maintenance calories, and I know I'll be fine for another week or two. And then if I need a nice little refeed, I'll just bump them up again, you know. And that's pretty much sort of how I live my life. And it's good fun. It's character building.
Yeah. Just a couple of more questions. When you're sitting, just a kind of random question, when you sit down to eat your meals, do you eat them like pretty mindfully? Like, do you focus on your food, or do you also listen to some stuff?
That's a very good question, because I know that this is going to find this very strange. I actually love seeing when you put up new videos, because it's like the perfect, like maybe 15 to 20 minutes sometimes. I'm like, this is going to last me a whole meal, you know? So I'm definitely one who, again, my meals are like a little ritual, you know what I mean? Like, I'll cook my food. I try to cook pretty much. I hate taking my food with me anywhere. I'll always try to have like a nice home cooked meal all the time. But it's like a nice little, I'll cook my meals. And yeah, I'll literally sit down and I'll either watch like a really nice, cool YouTube vid or listen to a good podcast. But because all my food's already like measured out and stuff, I still measure out everything. I still track everything just because I like doing it. Again, like it's not, I think I've heard you mention as well, Abel, that you find it just annoying and you find it more anxiety inducing, or it just adds more stress to your life. But I think you were talking to, is it Sotak? Is that how you pronounce his name?
Yeah, Sotak, yeah.
Sotak, and even he was saying that like he still measures everything out just because he likes it, right?
Right.
It just gives him, it's not an added stress to my life at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a habit that I just keep doing, right? So, and again, like everything's all weighed out, everything's all measured, and I'll sit down and have my meals. And again, I don't have to worry about overeating while watching because I know exactly how much food I'm eating. So I can focus on my food and yeah, just watch a really informative video. It's sort of what I love doing, to be honest. Yeah, it's a lovely experience. So yeah, I don't know. A lot of people were like, yeah, you want to be mindful and, you know, not have any sound or not have any audio or not have any visual. But I think that only becomes an issue if you're maybe prone to overeating, I guess. But I just find it adds to my experience. It doesn't detract from it at all, especially when someone like you, mate, dishing out some really good information.
Oh, thank you. So the other question I had is like, speaking of me, so when someone like me or whatever, some people that you follow on YouTube or Instagram or whatever, put out a video or something like, yeah, guys, I did a mini cut. It was so hard. I got down to 9% body fat. Like, how is it for you to watch it? Like, yeah, so you went from super obese to slightly less obese. Congratulations.
To be honest, it doesn't bother me at all because I know everyone's experience is different, and I know that everyone has a different perspective, right? I will never know how you feel when dieting. No one will ever know how I really feel when I'm dieting. I'm just describing my experience to you. So yeah, no, I'm never like, weak as piss. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it doesn't really bother me to be honest, because I know, you know, it's hard or difficult is what you perceive it to be, right? So yeah, no, I don't really, doesn't faze me too much. I have a little bit of a giggle sometimes, but yeah, it doesn't make me angry or anything, or it doesn't make me like perk up. But but yeah, it's yeah, nah. I want to see those people get down to like lean and then see what they have to say, but you know.
Yeah. Did you like what, like, I'm kind of intrigued, and this might be something that for my next cut, which might be like in a whatever month or two, I may try out the high energy expenditure route. Like, what do you think, like, if you didn't do the cardio and you didn't do all the steps that you do, like, if you live like a reasonably sedentary lifestyle, like how much lower do you think your calories would have to be?
Yeah, that's a good question. So what I found, now at my body weight, so if I wanted to maintain 77 kilos, based on my activity, so I'm using this information from, have you heard of Kevin Hall's little website, Body Weight Planner? To be fair, I would say that's probably the most accurate thing that I have used when it comes to calculating proper expenditure and intake for your body weight and body fat. So for those who are listening, if you guys really want to set up your calories, I would look at that, because when I decided to get back down to where I wanted to be, which is like 77, down from like 81, the calculations were like perfectly correct, based on my expenditure, right? So for me to get down to 77 with my current activity levels, I can maintain that body weight, that body fat with close to 3,600 calories a day, which is decent. You know what I mean? For someone that light, you know. I would assume that if I think if you just plug in just normal activity levels, I reckon if I wanted to maintain 77, I would probably have to eat maybe 25 to 26. So I think it gives me about 1,000 calorie buffer. Some days more, some days less, give or take. But I think if I was to, stop, maybe get my steps down to like a normal intake or to a normal step count, or slash my cardio down to nothing, I would say it's probably maybe 1,000 to 1,200 calories extra that I'm adding on. That's just an assumption I'm going to make, just based on, again, I don't think I'm super I would say I'm a bit more genetically blessed in regards to getting lean than most, but I wouldn't say it's like a Alberto Nunez sort of type situation. I'm pretty sure that guy gets shredded without even I think his only cardio was like 10,000 steps at one point. Like that was it. There was nothing else, right? So I wouldn't put myself in that category. But yeah, I would say I could probably maintain 77 at potentially maybe even less than 2,600 really, because I remember before my cut when I was like 85, 86, I was maintaining at maybe 3,000. So yeah, and that's now I'm like almost 10 kilos lighter. That's a lot of weight, right? So if I had the same behaviors then, maybe be closer to 24, 25, but yeah, that's a good question. I'm not too sure. Might have to experiment with that as well. If I slashed everything, what would happen? So.
Right. Cool. So, yeah, man, I think I asked you all my questions. So yeah, but that might be something that I'm gonna try out because
yeah, man.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I could maintain the same food choices that I have now and steadily gaining weight and to like drop weight at a reasonable pace. I don't know if that would be possible because I'm fairly sedentary now.
Yeah, because you're like what 91 kilos now? Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. How many calories are you on now?
I would say like just under 4,000 probably.
Yeah, that's solid, man. That's big. That's a lot of food, eh?
Yeah, it is. So yeah, I mean, even if I went down to like around 3,000, increase my energy expenditure a lot, even that's pretty good spot to be at a fat loss phase.
Oh, I agree. And that's what even the guys that I was working with, he was, because a lot of what they do, they'll get a lot of people very, very lean, right? But then they'll start the reverse diet with a lot of them. And when you look at like a typical reverse dieting protocol, it's your calories come up, right? And then your activity levels drop quite a bit too, to, to let fatigue disappear or whatever. But I think a lot of them are now going to sort of incorporate, because I was sort of like, well, I'm happy to keep my expenditure where it is. Let's just bring food up and see how high we can bring it up before I start putting on unnecessary weight, right? So, and my reasoning for that was, well, the habit's already ingrained. That's the hard bit done, right? Like we've got the habits established. Let's just now start toggling food and seeing how high we can bring it up. Maybe most would not be happy doing that. Maybe for most, towards the end of their fat loss phase, they're like, I don't want to do fucking 20,000 steps. I don't want to do any more cardio. Get me out of that. Get me off that fucking treadmill. I never want to see it ever again, right? So I guess it comes down to the person. But yeah, I think a lot can be said for going the expenditure route. Simply because when you're exercising and when you're active, that is also less time spending thinking about food. So I think that can be another good hack, because I'm sure, I don't know about you, but I think most people get hungry when they're just sitting there thinking about food. Not when you're actually walking around and you're doing something, you're engaged in something. It's a very easy way to keep your mind off food. So you get that double whammy of increasing energy expenditure and also keeping your mind off food. Which can, again, allows for more calories, which means your meals are a lot more satisfying than just, chicken and broccoli, right? So I would recommend, if you have the time, you have the resources, that going the expenditure route versus just, slashing the cows down. I think it's a much better way to go. And also, I was doing a bit more thinking as well. If you increase your expenditure, you obviously allow more room for calories, which allows more room for micronutrients, right? Especially when you're dieting down to very lean conditions. Like if you're just slashing calories all the time, well, that means, okay, you're having less sweet potato, you're having less calories that contain a lot of good nutrients as well, right? So it's much easier to keep a decent micronutrient status while dieting if your expenditure is a little bit higher too. So you can get more good quality food in, not shitty quality. So that's just another thing that I was thinking about as well. So yeah, I think it's a really good way to go if you have the resources and if you have the time. So yeah, man, give it a shot. It'll be good.
Yeah. It's one of those things, like many people, like because it's a general recommendation now that, well, don't go crazy with the cardio and whatever. But like if you have the time and if you have the resources, then it's kind of one of those things, like when I was a 19-year-old kid and I started reading about this minimalistic training practices, and I was like, I had like a summer vacation. My mom was paying for my food, and it was like, okay, so why am I only going to the gym twice a week? Well, because minimalistic training. It's like, bro, you're on a summer vacation. Your mom is buying your food.
Yeah, the whole like scared to lose muscle thing as well. Like that was one thing I had in my brain as well. But to like just to put things in a perspective, and just a caveat, I'm not telling anybody to do this. I'm not recommending this to anybody. I have literally done some sort of like interval sprints on a bike for the last 5 months, every single day. Now, am I saying that all those sessions are the same? Fuck no. Like it definitely taxes my recovery every now and then. But this is, again, some intervals pretty much every day the last 5 months. My legs are a little not as muscular as they would be if I was squatting quite a bit, potentially, but my legs are fucking absolutely diced and shredded, and their appearance, their aesthetics are a lot better than what they've ever been. And this is my only leg training is literally cycling. But again, as I mentioned before, I was relatively lucky in the leg department when it comes to good body parts. So maybe that is all the stimulus they need, right? And when you think about it though, it's all concentric, right? It's all metabolite build up. So maybe for me, that could be enough to maintain them. But I have personally not seen any quad loss, like in regards to how they look. They are a lot smaller than what they were, but I just think they have less body fat on them these days, and that is why they are smaller, so to speak. The separations in my quads and vascularity through there is like very similar to like a physique athlete, a natural physique athlete, not someone on gas, right? So that is my own experience. That is my own anecdote. I get that. But that is what I've seen. And again, that's intervals almost every day, pretty much every day. So yeah. And not because I'm doing it because there is some metabolic advantage to it. I just like doing it out of, just personal enjoyment, right? And I think that is a huge, important caveat for a lot of people. Like all the training that you guys are doing, you have to love it. You have to love it because, yeah, if you don't, you just won't fucking do it. You know what I mean? So I think a lot can be said for just doing things that you really enjoy, despite of what the best evidence shows. I'm just saying that from my own experience. Please don't take that as gospel and start destroying yourself. But that's what I've noticed personally, and it's been great. So
next diet, I'm still gonna keep calories high, keep cardio low, and take 3 diet breaks per week.
You'll definitely be lean by 2030.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm going to preserve so much more lean tissue, and my metabolism will be amazing.
Exactly. By the end, Yeah, and that's just on that front as well. Like, I thought my metabolism would be, how everyone. I think the whole metabolic damage thing has now been completely debunked as well. But there was no metabolic slowdown for me, and because again, like I was controlling pretty much as many variables as I possibly could, right? Like my NEAT, my activity, and my everything, right? My weight loss and weight gain was still very, very predictable, right? Like even the second time that I cut down, after I went from 81 down to 77, like my weight still dropped just as fast as it did on the first time, which was pretty cool, you know what I mean? Like we can't just create energy out of nothing. This whole metabolic thing, I think it's very I think again, people, you're not going to find many who are as diligent as I am when it comes to like controlling as many variables, but it just shows that when you do actually control these variables, that everything happens as predicted, which is reassuring, and really, really cool. So guys, don't be scared. Your metabolism will be fine.
Awesome. And thank you so much for doing this. I asked you all my questions. And what time is it at where you are now?
It is 10 to 7, so I'll be going to bed in half an hour. No, it is. It's close to 7 p.m. here.
Then I'll let you go. Yeah. So cool. So so thank you so much for doing this. Are you findable online somewhere, or you're still in person only?
Yeah. I am available online, but again, I don't have any half naked pics of me because I'm just not like that. But I think Abel will put some up in his YouTube video, so you guys can have a bit of a perv. But my Instagram is Ivan Dam, IYEVANDAMM, and it's just got pretty much pictures and videos of me doing weird mobility things because that's what I do these days. So if you want to see some guy doing some side splits, doing a little bit of crazy stuff on the rings, go check it out. And if you want some coaching in regards to physique, in regards to gymnastics based stuff, mobility stuff, just hit me up and be more than happy to help you out. And I promise I won't give you my regime. I promise.
Yeah. Step number 1: wake up at 3 a.m. That's.
Disregard all social aspects of your life and dedicate your life to being shredded. That is what you need to do.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for doing this. It was really awesome talking to you.
No worries. Thanks, Abel. Good to chat.
Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this interview with Ivan. If you want to be updated on future episodes like this, then subscribe to the Sustainable Self-Development podcast on whatever podcasting platform you're listening to this from. And if you're on YouTube, then definitely subscribe to my YouTube channel because more interviews like this will come in the future, and also a lot of informative videos that I'm doing at the moment. I'm sharing some personal stories about my fitness journey and overall life development, which I think can be relevant and helpful for anybody watching or listening to these, and also just a lot of informative fitness concepts related to dieting or training that is in my mind and I think can be relevant to some of you, or also shared these days very frequently on the channel. So definitely subscribe there. If you have a chance, definitely let me know in the comment section what you thought, and stay in tuned for future content like this. So I really hope you enjoyed this episode, and with that, see you next time.